Let's compare EBIT, or operating profit, to EBITDA. EBIT is equal to net income plus interest plus taxes and is also called operating profit. EBITDA, on the other hand, is equal to everything in EBIT plus depreciation and amortization added back as well. Let's look at an example. Here is an income statement, and first we'll calculate EBIT and then EBITDA. For EBIT, we start with net income, add back the taxes, and add back interest to get our operating profit of $55,861. Now let's do EBITDA. Net income plus taxes plus interest plus D&A, and we should point out that if depreciation and amortization is not located on the income statement, it can be found on the cash flow statement. And then we have EBITDA of $70,864. Let's look at when to use EBIT versus EBITDA. For a company with relatively low or stable capital expenditures, then EBITDA could be a good proxy for cash flow and comparability among companies. However, in capital-intensive industries like oil and gas or mining, infrastructure, etc., EBIT is much more appropriate because it captures that portion of capital that was spent to create the business and generate cash flow. Now, let's compare people who are in favor of EBIT versus those that are in favor of EBITDA. For people who favor EBIT, they argue that depreciation is relatively representative of CapEx over time and is required for the business, so it should be included and not backed out. Those who are in favor of using the EBITDA metric argue that depreciation is a non-cash expense, and furthermore, CapEx can be somewhat discretionary, meaning the money is probably spent more on growth than sustaining the business, although that is debatable. Therefore, they think that it should be excluded when looking at the profitability and comparability of other companies. Let's look at the impact on valuation. For capital-intensive industries, depreciation expense and capital requirements are both very high, so they trade at extremely low EV to EBITDA multiples. These companies may be what's called a value trap, meaning that they look cheap because they trade at low multiples, but because of all the CapEx that's required, they may not actually be undervalued at all. EBIT multiples will always be higher than EBITDA multiples, and they might be more appropriate for comparing companies across different industries or getting a normalized view of what capital expenditures are and including that depreciation expense. Thank you for joining us on this tutorial of EBIT versus EBITDA.